So picture this. You're Captain Veltar, the Zephyrian research vessel General Current, and you just had the absolute worst day in your 30-year career. You're on what should have been a routine survey mission in the Outer Rim territories, checking mineral deposits and mapping new star systems. Nothing exciting, nothing dangerous. Just another boring run through empty space. But then your communications officer, a young Zephyrian named Kexley, suddenly goes rigid at his console. His tentacles start that nervous twitching thing they do when something's really wrong. He calls out across the bridge with this shaky voice that makes everyone stop what they're doing. "Captain," he says, "I'm picking up a distress beacon. It's been broadcasting for 3 whole cycles." Now, 3 cycles in deep space terms? That's basically forever. Most distress beacons either get answered within hours, or, well, let's just say there's usually nobody left to answer them after that long. But this one is different. This signal is strong, powerful, like someone's pumping massive amount of energy into keeping alive. When Kexley starts running the decode sequence, the entire bridge goes dead silent, except for the soft humming of the ship systems. The translation comes through, and honestly, Veltar wishes it hadn't. The message is from the colony ship New Horizon, a massive civilian transport carrying 10,000 Andromedian families to their new settlement world. Families, kids, elderly folks, all packed into what's basically a floating city in space. And right now, that floating city is in serious trouble. The ship's engines have completely failed. Not just damaged, not just running on backup power. Completely dead. They're caught in what the message calls a deteriorating orbital pattern around a gas giant. In simple terms, they're falling toward a planet that'll crush them like a tin can the moment they hit the atmosphere. Their life support systems are running on emergency power, maybe giving them days at most before 10,000 people start suffocating in the cold darkness of space. But here's where things get really complicated. This disaster isn't happening in some random part of the galaxy. It's happening right on the edge of human territory. And let me tell you, when other species in the Galactic Council talk about humans, they do it in hushed voices like they're discussing some kind of galactic horror story. See, humans are the newest members of the Council, and nobody really knows what to make of them. They showed up from this planet called Earth, and when the Council scientists ran their standard habitability assessments, the results broke their computers. Earth isn't just hostile to life, it's actively trying to kill everything on it, all the time. The official classification came back as Class XI Deathworld, which is a rating so extreme that most species didn't even know the scale went that high. Think about it this way. Most Council species come from nice, stable worlds with gentle weather and friendly ecosystems. The Zephyrians, for example, evolve on a planet with perfect temperature control and no dangerous predators. The Andromedians come from a world so peaceful that their biggest natural disaster is occasionally having too much rain. But Earth? Earth has massive storms that can level entire cities, shifting ground that swallows buildings, extreme temperatures that swing from freezing to deadly hot, and predators that hunt other predators for fun. The planet literally tries to shake itself apart on a regular basis. Most Council species look at Earth's data files and immediately classify the whole system as a no-go zone. And yet somehow, impossibly, humans didn't just survive on this nightmare world. They thrived. They built civilizations, developed advanced technology, and eventually figured out space travel. When they finally made contact with the Council, they did it by casually flying through a radiation storm that should have fried any normal ship's electronics. So now Veltar is staring at this distress call, knowing that 10,000 innocent lives are hanging in the balance, and the only potential help is from these mysterious Deathworlders that everyone's afraid to talk about. Her crew is looking at her with those big, worried eyes that Zephyrians get when they're trying not to panic. They all know the math. Their research vessel doesn't have the power or the equipment to attempt to rescue this scale. They're scientists, not emergency responders. But what choice does she have? Those are 10,000 real people out there running out of air and time. Families with children who went to sleep last night thinking they were safe, only to wake up trapped in a slowly dying ship. Veltar takes a deep breath, steadies her tentacles, and tells her communications officer to send out the emergency relay. She broadcasts a distress call across all frequencies, hoping that someone, anyone, will be close enough and brave enough to attempt an impossible rescue in one of the most dangerous regions of known space. As the message goes out into the void, Veltar has no idea who might answer, or if anyone will answer at all. 18 hours pass like the longest day of Veltar's life. Her crew keeps checking the sensors every few minutes, hoping to see something, anything, appearing on their screens. The bridge has this heavy, anxious atmosphere where everyone's trying to stay busy, but really just waiting. Kexley keeps adjusting the communication arrays, muttering under his breath about signal strength and hoping someone heard their call. Then, without any warning, space itself seems to tear open. 3 ships drop out of hyperspace, so close to the gentle current that the proximity alarms start screaming. But here's the thing. These aren't the clumsy, stuttering exits from hyperspace that most species manage. These ships appear with mathematical precision, perfectly spaced, moving in formation like they've done this dance 1,000 times before. The Zephyrian senses go absolutely crazy, recalibrating themselves twice, because they can't believe what they're measuring. The ships themselves are unlike anything in the Council databases. Sleek, predatory-looking vessels with smooth hulls that seem to absorb light rather than reflect it. No fancy decorations, no cultural symbols. Just pure function wrapped in metal that looks like it could cut through a moon if it wanted to. They move through space with this fluid grace that makes Veltar's research vessel feel like a floating brick by comparison. The lead ship opens a communication channel, and suddenly the bridge fills with a voice that makes everyone freeze. It's completely calm, steady, like whoever's speaking is discussing the weather instead of responding to a massive emergency. This is Captain David Ross of the UES Defiant. We received your distress call and are here to assist with the rescue operation. Now, Veltar has been in space for decades. She's heard thousands of different voices from dozens of species. But this human voice hits differently. There's no panic, no excitement, no dramatic declarations about heroic rescue missions. Just simple, direct communication that somehow manages to be both reassuring and slightly terrifying at the same time. Her communications officer is so shocked he forgets to respond for a full 10 seconds. Finally, Veltar manages to stammer out coordinates and technical data about the trapped colony ship. Captain Ross acknowledges with a simple copy that we'll be docking in 15 minutes to coordinate the rescue attempt. When the human shuttle's attached to the gentle current, the whole ship seems to hold its breath. Veltar positions herself at the docking bay with half her senior crew, not really sure what to expect. The airlock cycles through its sequence, and then the door slides open with a soft hiss. The first human through the door immediately changes how Veltar thinks about Deathworlders forever. Captain David Ross is tall, probably a head taller than most Ephirians, but it's not his height that's striking. It's how he moves. Every step is deliberate, balanced, like he's ready to react to danger from any direction at any moment. He's wearing some kind of advanced armor that looks both protective and functional, with a clear visor that reveals the most unsettling eyes Veltar has ever seen. They're bright blue, almost glowing, and they seem taking everything at once, scanning the corridor, assessing the crew, calculating distances and exit routes all in the same glance. Behind him come 4 more humans, and they all move with that same predatory confidence. Not arrogant, Veltar realizes that's important. They're not strutting around showing off. They're just completely, utterly confident in their ability to handle whatever situation they're walking into. It's like watching apex predators who've never encountered anything they couldn't overcome. What really gets to Veltar, though, is how her crew reacts. Zephyrians are naturally nervous creatures. They evolved as prey animals on their homeworld, so they're always a bit jumpy around strangers. But right now, her entire senior staff is doing that chittering thing they do when they're really anxious. Tentacles twitching, eyes darting around, the whole nervous breakdown starter pack. Meanwhile, the humans just stand there calmly waiting for someone to brief them on the situation. Captain Ross removes his helmet, revealing a face that's somehow both alien and familiar. Sharp angles, weathered skin that speaks of harsh environments, and those impossibly bright eyes that seem to miss nothing. When he speaks, his voice has this quality that makes everyone listen without him having to raise it. Captain Veltar, We're going to need detailed specifications on the colony ship's construction, current orbital mechanics, and timeline for atmospheric entry. My team will also need access to your sensor data on the debris field surrounding the gas giant. While Veltar's crew is still processing the fact that actual Deathworlders are standing in their ship, the humans are already pulling out handheld devices and starting to run calculations. No dramatic speeches, no questions about how dangerous the mission might be, no concerns about whether it's even possible. They just want data so they can figure out how to save 10,000 lives. One of the other humans, a woman with sergeant stripes on her armor, looks up from her device and says to Ross, "Initial calculations show a 17-minute window for extraction using a gravity assist. We'll need to clear the debris field first, then synchronize 3 tractor beam arrays for the slingshot maneuver." Ross nods like she just told him the weather forecast. Acceptable parameters. Let's get started. And that's when Veltar realizes something that changes her entire perspective on humans. They didn't come here to attempt a rescue. They came here to execute one. When Veltar pulls up the tactical display showing the colony ship situation, her heart sinks straight through the deck plating. This isn't just a rescue mission. It's a physics nightmare wrapped in an engineering impossibility with a side order of certain death. The New Horizon is caught in what space navigators call a death spiral, but that clinical term doesn't really capture how utterly screwed 10,000 people are right now. The massive colony ship is tumbling end over end in a decaying orbit around a gas giant that's roughly twice the size of Jupiter. Every rotation brings them closer to that swirling orange atmosphere, and once they hit those outer gas layers, the pressure will crush their hull like stepping on an empty soda can. But wait, it gets worse. The entire area around the gas giant is littered with chunks of what used to be an asteroid belt. These aren't cute little space pebbles. We're talking about jagged rocks the size of city blocks, all spinning and bouncing off each other in completely unpredictable patterns. It's like trying to navigate through a blender filled with flying cars while blindfolded. The debris field stretches for thousands of kilometers in every direction around the colony ship. Any rescue vessel would have to thread through this cosmic demolition derby just to get close enough to help. And that's assuming they don't get smashed to pieces by a stray asteroid moving at 20,000 kilometers per hour. Veltar runs the calculations on her own computer, hoping maybe she missed something. The numbers come back the same every time. The colony ship has maybe 4 hours before it hits the gas giant's upper atmosphere. The debris field makes any normal approach impossible. Even if somehow a rescue ship could reach them, the colony vessel is too damaged to survive any kind of high-speed extraction maneuver. She shows this data to Captain Ross, expecting him to shake his head and start talking about impossible odds or heroic sacrifices. Instead, he just stares at the display for exactly 7 minutes while his team runs their own calculations on those handheld devices. 7 minutes. That's it. 7 minutes to analyze a situation that should take teams of specialists days to figure out, assuming they can figure out at all. Then Ross looks up from the tactical display and says the most terrifying thing Veltar has ever heard. We'll attempt a gravity slingshot extraction. My ships will clear a corridor through the debris field while simultaneously engaging tractor beams on the colony vessel. We'll use the gas giant's gravitational pull to accelerate the extraction beyond the normal parameters of the colony ship's structural integrity. Veltar's translator must be malfunctioning, because what she just heard sounds like complete insanity. "Captain," she says carefully, "did you just say you're going to fly into that debris field on purpose?" Ross nods like this is perfectly normal. The debris field is actually an advantage. We can use controlled impacts to redirect the larger asteroids while creating a clear path. The key is timing the gravitational assist so we can extract the colony ship before it enters the gas giant's crushing depth. One of her crew members, a young engineer named Thexno, starts making this high-pitched whining sound that Zephyrians make when they're absolutely terrified. "But Captain Ross," he stammers, "the gravitational forces alone would tear any normal ship apart. The colony vessel isn't designed for those kind of acceleration stresses." The human captain turns to Thexno with those unnaturally bright eyes and actually smiles. It's not a reassuring smile. It's the kind of smile a shark might give if sharks could smile. That's why it's not going to be a normal extraction. What happens next breaks every law of physics, common sense, and basic survival instinct that Veltar thought were universal constants. The three human ships spread out in perfect formation and dived straight into the debris field, like a gentle summer breeze instead of a chaotic maze of flying death. But here's where it gets really insane. They're not trying to avoid the asteroids. They're deliberately ramming into the smaller ones, using their ship's hulls like cosmic billiard cues to redirect chunks of rock and clear a path. Meanwhile, all three vessels are firing tractor beams. Not at the colony ship yet, but the larger asteroids, actually grabbing them and flinging them out of the way like someone cleaning up toys. Their ships dance through the debris field in formations that should be impossible, moving in synchronized patterns that somehow account for the gravitational effects of both the gas giant and every single piece of spinning rock around them. Veltar watches her sensors in complete disbelief as the humans execute maneuvers that make her ship's computer keep displaying error messages. They're flying in three-dimensional spirals, using the gas giant's gravity to whip around debris clusters while maintaining perfect formation. It's like watching someone juggle chainsaws while riding a unicycle on a tightrope during an earthquake. Then, when they've cleared enough of a path, all three human ships lock their tractor beams onto the tumbling colony vessel and do something that should be completely impossible. They use the gas giant's own massive gravitational field as a slingshot, deliberately diving closer to the planet's surface to build up incredible speed before yanking the colony ship away from destruction. The New Horizon goes from a death spiral to shooting away from the gas giant at velocities that should have turned everyone inside into paste. But somehow, the humans have calculated extraction so precisely that the colony ship survives accelerations that would normally require months of careful planning. Physics isn't just being bent here. It's being politely asked to step aside while the humans work. So here's where things go from impossible to absolutely insane. The humans just pulled off what might be the greatest rescue maneuver in galactic history, yanking 10,000 people away from certain death using a gas giant as their personal slingshot. The colony ship New Horizon is now safely away from that crushing atmosphere, tumbling through empty space instead of plummeting toward destruction. Captain Ross should be celebrating. His crew should be patting themselves on the back for defying physics and making the impossible look easy. Instead, he's standing on Veltar's bridge with this grim expression that makes everyone's blood run cold. "We got a bigger problem," he announces, and honestly, Veltar doesn't know how anything could be bigger than what they just survived. Ross pulls up the colony ship status on the main display, and suddenly everyone understands why it looks like someone just told him the universe is ending. The gravity slingshot maneuver worked perfectly, maybe too perfectly. The massive acceleration forces that saved the ship from crashing also finished off what was left of their failing life support systems. All those delicate atmospheric processors, oxygen recyclers, and air filtration units that were barely hanging on, they're now completely dead. 10,000 Andromedian civilians are sitting in a giant metal can with exactly 6 hours of breathable air remaining. That's it. 6 hours before 10,000 people start suffocating in the cold darkness of space. The nearest space station with adequate life support facilities is Station Kepler 7, a bustling trade hub that could easily handle 10,000 refugees. Under normal circumstances, it would be the perfect solution to their problem. Unfortunately, Station Kepler 7 is 14 hours away at maximum safe speed. Let me repeat that math for you. 6 hours of air, 14 hours to safety. Even a child can see that this equation ends with 10,000 dead civilians floating in space. Veltar runs every calculation she can think of. Maybe they could push the colony ship's engines harder. Cut the travel time down? No. The New Horizon is too damaged from the extraction. The hull is already showing stress fractures, and another high-speed run would tear apart. Maybe they could vent some sections of the ship, reduce the number of people breathing the remaining air? The numbers still don't work, and besides, who gets to decide which families suffocate first? Her crew is starting to make those chittering noises again, the sounds Etherians make when they're trying not to panic. Even Kexley, usually the most optimistic member of her team, is staring at the calculations with this hopeless expression. But Captain Ross isn't giving up. He's standing there studying the data with those bright blue eyes, and Veltar can almost see his brain working through the problem like some kind of organic computer. After exactly 3 minutes of silence, He turns to his team and says something that makes every alien on the bridge question whether humans might actually be insane. We're going to manual transfer emergency life support pods through open space. The bridge goes dead quiet. Even the ship's background humming seems to stop. Veltar's translator runs a sentence through twice, because surely she misheard something. "Captain," she says carefully, "did you just say you want to work in open space? In vacuum?" Ross nods like this is the most natural thing in the world. Each of our ships carries emergency life support pods rated for civilian evacuation. We can transfer them directly to the colony ship and set up temporary life support systems throughout their vessel. It'll buy us the time we need to reach Station Kepler 7. Now, most species in the galaxy treat space vacuum like it's liquid death, because that's exactly what it is. No air, no pressure, radiation that'll cook you from the inside out, and temperatures that swing from boiling hot to absolute zero, depending on whether you're facing a star or not. Most civilized beings won't even look out a viewport without protective shields, let alone consider working outside their ships. But these humans, they're already suiting up. Within 20 minutes, the humans have opened the airlocks on all 3 of their ships and are floating through hard vacuum like it's just another day at the office. Veltar watches through her external cameras as armored figures drift between the vessels using nothing but small maneuvering thrusters, each one carrying emergency life support pods that weigh as much as a small shuttle. The coordination is absolutely incredible to watch. They're working in 3-dimensional space with no up or down, no fixed reference points except the ships themselves, and they're doing it while wearing bulky armor that would make most species clumsy and slow. But these humans move through vacuum with the same fluid precision they showed flying through that debris field. Their voices come through the comm channel steady and calm, calling out positions and coordinating the transfer of mass equipment through space. Ross to Mitchell, "I've got Pod 7 secured and moving to docking port 12. "Copy that, Ross." Jennifer's got Pod 8 ready for transfer to port 15. They sound like they're discussing a routine cargo operation instead of performing an impossible rescue in the most hostile environment imaginable. Each life support pod has to be manually guided to the colony ship, connected to their existing systems, and calibrated for Andromedan atmospheric requirements. This isn't just physical labor. It's complex technical work that most species would need specialized equipment and controlled environments to perform. But the humans just do it. They float through vacuum, wrestling with equipment that outweighs them, making delicate technical adjustments while wearing thick gloves, all while treating the deadly emptiness of space like it's merely another environment to master. Watching them work, Veltar finally understands what makes Deathworlders different. They don't see hostile environments as obstacles to avoid. They see them as problems to solve. 6 hours later, the convoy is cruising toward Station Kepler. 7 at a steady pace, and for the first time in days, Veltar can actually breathe without feeling like the universe is about to collapse around her. The emergency life support pods are working perfectly, giving the 10,000 Andromedan refugees clean air and stable temperatures. The crisis is over, the impossible has been accomplished, and somehow everyone is going to make a home alive. But Veltar can't stop thinking about what she just witnessed. She's been in space for 30 years, seen dozens of species handle emergencies in dozens of different ways. But nothing has prepared her for watching humans work. The way they moved through that debris field, like physics was optional. The casual manner they treated hard vacuum like a minor inconvenience. Most of all, the complete absence of fear when facing situations that should have terrified any rational being. She opens a private communication channel to the Defiant and finds Captain David Ross in his ready room. Finally out of that intimidating armor, with his helmet off, she gets her first real look at the human face behind all that military precision. His features are sharp and weathered, like someone who spent years dealing with harsh conditions. But there's something else there too, a kind of quiet intensity that speaks of someone who's seen terrible things and decided to keep fighting anyway. "Captain Ross," she begins, not quite sure how to put her thoughts into words. "I've been thinking about what happened today. Your species. You don't seem to factor personal risk into your decision-making process at all." Ross leans back in his chair, and for the first time since they met, he looks almost relaxed. "What do you mean by that, Captain Veltar?" When we showed you the tactical situation with the colony ship, any other species would have spent hours calculating survival probabilities, discussing acceptable loss ratios, maybe even debating whether a rescue attempt was worth the potential cost in lives and equipment. Your people took 7 minutes to decide, and then you just did it. Ross nods slowly, like he's heard this observation before. You're not wrong. Most humans don't think about personal costs first when people need help. But why? Veltar asks, genuinely puzzled. Your species has the same survival instincts as the rest of us. You should understand that some situations are too dangerous, that sometimes a rational choice is to walk away and preserve your own lives. That's when Ross does something that completely transforms his entire face. He smiles. It's not the predatory grin she saw earlier, or the professional courtesy expression he wore during the rescue operation. This is something warmer, more genuine, and somehow it makes this dangerous Deathworlder seem almost approachable. Captain, he says, you have to understand where we come from. Earth doesn't care about your comfort, your safety, or your carefully laid plans. Our planet throws everything it has at us. Massive storms, shifting ground, extreme temperatures, predators, diseases, natural disasters that can wipe out entire cities in minutes. The universe never gave us the luxury of safe choices. He pauses, looking out through the viewport at the stars streaming past. Early in our history, humans learned that you either help each other survive or nobody survives. The person next to you might be the only thing standing between you and death when the next disaster hits. We adapted to see other people's survival as directly connected to our own. Veltar thinks about her own homeworld, stable temperatures, predictable weather, an ecosystem so balanced that the biggest natural disaster was occasional flooding during the rainy season. Her people evolved with the luxury of individual survival strategies because their world was fundamentally safe. So when you see people in danger, she says slowly, you don't calculate risks and probabilities. You just act. Pretty much, Ross confirms. We see impossible odds as just another problem that needs solving. We measure our success not by what resources we can accumulate or how much risk we can avoid, but by how many people we can keep alive. Over the following days, as news of the rescue spreads through the Galactic Council communication networks, other species begin to understand something fundamental about these newcomer humans that changes everything. The official reports describe the technical details of the gravity slingshot extraction and emergency life support transfer, but what really captures everyone's attention is the underlying philosophy behind the rescue. The Zephyrians start sharing stories about humans who responded to their distress calls without asking about payment or strategic advantage. The Andromedians begin talking about a species that measures heroism not by the glory gained, but by the lives saved. Even the more militaristic species in the Council start paying attention to these Deathworlders who seem to treat impossible missions as routine assignments. What emerges from all these stories is a picture of a species forged by their harsh world into something unprecedented in galactic civilization. Most species evolved to avoid danger, to calculate risks, to preserve their own communities first and worry about others later. But humans evolved differently. Their world was so consistently hostile that they learned cooperation and mutual aid weren't luxuries. They were survival requirements. They're a species that runs toward danger instead of away from it, that sees overwhelming odds as puzzles to solve rather than reasons to give up, and that instinctively measures their worth not by what they can take from the universe, but by whom they can save from it. This is what makes Deathworlders different from everyone else in the galaxy. They weren't just shaped by survival. They were forged by the understanding that sometimes survival means being willing to risk everything for complete strangers. And the galaxy is never quite the same after learning that lesson.